Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the notion of attorneys as intercessors in the U.S. visa process. Now, I'm specifically talking about what's called consular processing. So this is visa processing at U.S. embassies outside of the United States. And I bring this up because, first of all, it should be noted, when you're dealing with a prospective immigrant outside the USA, their rights are extremely truncated to the point of being effectively non-existent. On top of this, you are also talking about a situation wherein consular officers have what's called the doctrine of consular non-reviewability with respect to fact-finding in visa cases outside the United States, especially at embassies and consulates abroad. And the reason I bring this up is I was actually kind of reading through the Canterbury Tales, not reading the whole thing, but I was thinking about it the other day, and I went online and I was looking at excerpts from it. And they brought up one of the tales that I didn't read when I was younger, and I was reading through it. It was the Pardoner's Tale. And they talked about this tale. This was the pardoner, and I'm not comparing attorneys to the pardoner per se, but there were some interesting insights into this where they were talking about this, and this was at a time when the Roman Catholic Church was very powerful in Christendom in Western Europe. And in the Canterbury Tales, they talk about this pardoner, and this was a person that basically, in a sense, acted as a kind of an intercessor in a way, as a kind of an intermediary between the plenary power of the Church, i.e., the Pope, Rome, the Vatican, and, individuals in order to get indulgences, for example, granted to people for sins, etc. And the reason I bring this up, I'm not trying to veer too far out into sort of the realm of esoteria or anything, but at the time, the reason this was possible is there were these notions of plenary indulgences, and this is very akin to the plenary power associated with immigration, and it's very evident when you're dealing with consular processing. You're not dealing specifically with legal issues per se all the time. And in some cases, yeah, we're certainly dealing with the Immigration Nationality Act in a legal context on certain things, but on fact-finding, we're talking about plenary powers where these consular officers have, the doctrine of consular absolutism. They can make factual determinations, and they're not subject to review. And the Supreme Court is basically, this was centuries ago, I think it was the first decade of the 1800s, made a ruling on this and said, look, we're not going to be in the business of reviewing these consular officers, these consuls' fact-finding, because this is operating in plenary power, and it's just not something we're going to do. And here we are now. Now, again, there's the INA, there is law that undergirds how this stuff operates, but in a factual sense, when you're dealing with the facts of a case and where you're trying to advocate for your client, I often think of this sort of attorney as intercessor, or maybe in a sense lobbyist in a way, but definitely advocate, where you're trying your best to deal with this person, to put forth the best case you can to a person who has really unfettered, for lack of a better term, plenary power to make factual findings in the case. Again, legal findings, a little bit different. There is a framework for dealing with that, but in factual matters, this is heavy stuff, and they really have pretty unfettered discretion with respect to making factual findings. So again, the thing to take away from this video is, attorneys in this context, I often have people that get a little bit miffed with me, for lack of a better term, that they think I'm not moving things along fast enough, especially right now where we just had the whole system turned off. It was just almost seized up. We got maybe in the latter half of 2020, if I got a half a dozen cases through the embassy, I'd be surprised. It was just not much was going through there. And then boom, after Biden, a week pretty much after Biden, we really started seeing cases processed out of NBC, and boom, the apparatus just kind of turns back on. Look, everybody at the, I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that the folks, that are having to process cases through the visa unit, they're working double time compared to what especially compared to, 6-8 months ago when there wasn't much going on at all. It was like the Maytag repair office down there. There was nothing going on at one point, I suspect. And then And then now it's it's double. It's probably double the caseload, if not more so. And they've got to make the decisions that they need to make in a very efficient manner. You know, they don't have a lot of time to deal with this stuff. And the timing of how you put forth cases and deal with these things, it's something best left to an attorney, especially an attorney who's had a lot of experience dealing with the specific embassy, dealing with the specific post abroad, and sort of knows, at least knows is the wrong word, but at least has some insight into how, you know, that's going to process as an administrative matter. Because believe me, you can end up in a situation where, you know, if you do things in such a way that is not, that may, it's, I hesitate to say it's inefficient, but if you do things in such a way that it throws the overall system or throws things sort of out of joint in how things get done, like it's, I almost think of immigration as a conveyor belt in a way. It's sort of things processed through, and yes, there are certain times, if you will, like a river, there can be a log jam. You got to get that log jam moved in a given case, or the situation is such that a given, you know, agency that deals with this is doing things in a certain way that it's not particularly efficient, and you need to try and deal with that accordingly. However, in situations where there's a lot of consternation, there's a lot of haste going on, and there's a lot of flared passions, especially from applicants and things, sometimes it's best to listen to your attorney about how best to deal with those things, because sometimes a softer touch is a little bit better than banging on somebody's door trying to get something done, especially in the context when you're dealing with people that are operating, again, under this sort of plenary power where, you know, their factual determinations, you know, can have a tremendous and substantial impact on the outcome and on the attributes, on the adjudication of a given case.